Hey, Alan. Welcome to the Workgrid Podcast. Before we get started, I think it would be great for us to, for folks who may not know you, might not be too many of those, but folks who don't, be great to hear a little bit about yourself and particularly, what you've been working on most recently.
Sure thing. Well, Rob, first of all, thank you very much for having me here today. For those of you that do know me, thank you. That's great. And for those of you that this is the first time, it's a pleasure to make new friends, even if it's online. So, my name is Alan Lepofsky. I've been working in the collaboration software industry since the mid 90s, doing all sorts of things that help employees collaborate, be productive, get their jobs done, work in teams, etc. I live in Canada, so representing Canada here, that's a big part of my identity, even online. And throughout the last couple of years, looking two jobs back, how you and I met, I spent a decade as an industry analyst covering the collaboration world for Constellation Research, Ray Wong and his company. After that, I was at Salesforce for about 3 years in the marketing and the community team. And for the last 2.5 years, I've had the incredible fun and pleasure of working at a startup named Mobeus. And at Mobeus, what we're doing is looking at creating immersive and interactive experiences for people, kind of the buzzwords of the day, but we'll explain more as we go on. But the key to it being requiring no additional hardware, no headsets, no gloves, and creating these experiences that allow you to become part of them, um, but making it a lot easier for people than we see dealing with some of the other alternatives.
Incredible. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, Alan, we met a few years back, as you mentioned, at Constellation Research. So you've gotten to see really the expanse of workplace tech,
Mm.
particularly over the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years. What are some of the hallmarks or measures that you've seen or changes or none, if you will? What's been pertinent? What's been top of mind for folks?
That's a fantastic question. We love to talk about the future of work, and I kind of jokingly say the future of work is often things stay quite the same. There's a lot of status quo in what happens in the workplace. But to frame this conversation, I think we really have to talk about who the audience is.
Mm,
We all know the adoption curves that talk about, the bleeding edge, the early adopters, the people that are in the status quo, and the laggards that follow. And it does differ greatly for each of those. And for those of us that live in the tech bubble, we tend to be, on that top 4 to 10% of that curve, and so are our network of people. So we believe that all these new shiny objects, all this new technology is top of mind for everybody. But then if you go and you talk to your friends that aren't in tech, they've stayed pretty much the status quo for anywhere between 5 to 10 to 20 years. So I want to just frame this with saying it depends on who the audience we're talking to is, the average knowledge worker, the person that goes and gets their job done, or that tech enthusiast. Let's focus on that tech enthusiast because I think
mm,
those are the people that are going to be watching this amazing podcast. So,
absolutely.
those are the people we want to talk about. And I think there's probably three major categories of things that have happened without getting too nuanced into specific products or specific features, but big bucket item things that have happened over the last few years. We obviously can't ignore the flip flopping from work from home, return to office. I think that has obviously impacted us more than any given singular technology or tool or framework. I think for the majority of people, 5 years ago to today, that is what's happened. They were in the offices. They may have worked from home one day a week. Pandemic hit. Everyone worked from home. Politics, technology. Some people return to office, some people don't. It's that balance, that work from home, return to office is probably the thing that has impacted us the most.
Mm.
And it's impacted us in many ways: the tools we use, the apps we use, the hardware we use, the home setups, the home offices, the lighting equipment, the microphones, all of that, I think, is very key before we get into any specific like apps or tools. So just the environment, I guess I'd say, we work in has significantly changed. The second part of that is exactly what's happening now. With that shift from away from office, we have dramatically increased our video consumption. Whatever tool it is you happen to use, we've gone from 1 or 2 hours a week of, a day, I should say, of potential meetings to spending most of our time online. because we are living separate from people, or the organizations we work for have become more global, or connecting with our friends and family, and the technology has just become more commonplace, whether it's work related technology or personal technologies, things like a FaceTime or any of the ways we connect with people online. I'd say that increase in video consumption is a massive change, and it's something we've had to culturally and technology wise get used to. Sometimes it's for the better and sometimes it's for the worse. We've seen all sorts of things happen in that space, like, oh, I don't want to show myself, I want to show an animated avatar version of myself. And so it's sort of like, are we losing authenticity in the area where we really should be gaining authenticity because we're interacting, we're not getting to see each other face to face. So I'm sometimes surprised at some of the directions some of these tools and products and culture are going in around video. I don't think the tools that we mainly use for these have kept up with the pace and the need and sort of our feelings and the emotional side of what we need to do for all this work from home and all that remote. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So, there's all sorts of elements of it. There's the video conferencing, there's metaverse and virtual reality and augmented reality, and now we're talking spatial computing. All
Mm.
of those things kind of come into a bucket that I'm just saying spending time online in video. So working from home, connecting with people in whatever tool or environment, whether real or virtual. And then the third, I guess, we're 5 minutes into this podcast. I can't go without saying artificial intelligence, or we'd get booed off the stage, I guess, these days. Obviously it does have an impact. Again, overhyped in the cycles the circles, I should say, or networks that we live in. The average person you talk to isn't as overrun with the idea of AI as we tend to be. But I think no matter what your position is, sales, marketing, creative content creation, data analysis, whatever your role is, of course AI is starting to take a part of that and be part of your tool set and augmenting our capabilities. So working from home, video, AI, those would be my three.
That's a great summary. That's a great summary because we certainly, in many organizations, those that tend to lag behind, it probably hasn't changed all that much outside of the dynamic of where they happen to work or even get called back to the office with return to office.
Yeah, we still have the same processes, the same, go to work, have meetings, check your mail, check your messaging client, whichever one it happens to be, do
Hmm.
your online conference, use your HR software, go to your company's website, visit other websites. It's still the jobs are relatively the same. And that's not a bad thing. We don't have to adapt just for the sake of a new technology. There are processes that are in place that are very good, but we do always want to be leveraging technology in ways that not only improve our individual roles, but hopefully impact the team that we work for, impact our organization overall, and more importantly, impact society in general. Like, what can these technologies do to help the world? That's where I think this technology focus has to be. We've lost sight of, I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent, but we've lost sight on humanity in a lot of these things we do. We're making things less personal and less connected and more automated and more, you know, removing personality and emotion from things. And that's something that worries me. And that's something that, I'm happy to be hopefully working on part of trying to change those things.
Yeah, that's a really good point because we do. We have more technology. We have abundance of technology, and yet it feels like we're working through the technology as opposed to using the technology to work for us. Like a humane means of using tech. And when I saw Mobeus for the first time, naturally, light bulbs went off in my head of certainly the application. How has Mobeus begun to really change the relationship of a user to interacting with technology in a much more, dare I say, humane manner?
Thank you for that, lead up. And I'm glad, your initial reaction was a positive one. We have so enjoyed showing people what we're doing, and we can show your audience in just a few minutes. But
Yeah.
I think, the general idea that the founders, Richie Etwaro and Mike Sutcliffe, set out to build this company, Mobeus, our original, and our tagline probably still to this day is we talk about being a human connections company. We want to leverage leverage technology to make our lives better. Everything from the elderly escaping loneliness to the employees connecting better with customers and employees getting along better, presenters being able to show content, teachers being able to interact better with students, online sales being better because we bring live human presence into these things. Everything we've done has been focused around how can we use technology to inject humanity back into it. That's been our driving force in everything we do. So that's been fun, and is the best way to get that across. Do you want me to show a few things? You want me to do a couple
Yeah.
minutes here?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think our listeners would love to see some of the advancements you folks have made.
All right, so let's see. I believe I can. Do I have screen sharing capabilities? I do. I'm going to choose my desktop. We'll just do a very quick demo here.
Awesome.
So what I'm going to show you is the most standard kind of thing that people do for a presentation, PowerPoint, correct? So we're going to start in PowerPoint. And like 99% of the PowerPoint presentations all of you watch on a daily basis, you are now hearing my voice, but I'm coming from sort of the fourth wall behind the content. You're not really seeing me anymore. We were having a nice conversation. We had a video. I went to full screen mode and you lose me. And so what we do at Mobeus is we allow you to put your presence directly into anything that you're sharing on screen. Again, I want to start with PowerPoint because it sort of connects to people, but it's any website, any application. We're not a plugin for anything. We're not an API for anything. We're a layer that runs on your computer's desktop, on Windows or Mac's desktop. So any single thing you are showing on screen, we can make you transparent behind. So now, instead of presenting these slides to you and you hearing or a sales rep talk about their numbers, I can literally point to the information that I'm talking to you about. So I can say, Rob, we did pretty good here in March. We hit 812K, but we need to really look at those May numbers. We need to get those up. It really brings the content that you're presenting to life. It allows you to see my eyes, watch my hand gestures, see my facial expressions. And that leads to massively improved comprehension. Like people pay attention to what's going on now. Teachers teaching through Airglass are able to get better feedback from their students. Presenters are able to really connect with their audience because that improved sort of communication, sharpening the comprehension, really making sure people understand what you're saying. And then third, retaining it. We've really found from our customers that not only did you get it, you remember me talking about March, or you remember me talking about May, because it's so much more visual. So I can control this level of transparency. I can make it more about me. I can make it more about the content. It's very easy. I'm just using a hotkey, sort of talk about sort of like producing a movie is kind of the way we're doing it. So as I'm presenting, I produce. I can, of course, we have what's called a light board. I can draw on things. So I can easily, instead of going out of context to a whiteboard and then losing what was on screen and talking about it, we can literally have you draw over anything. I can come in here and we can say, let's do a follow-up on this. I can type or I can draw on anything. So we're trying to do a couple of things. We're trying to inject that humanity into your presentations. We're trying to improve your comprehension in those presentations, etc. Let me just show you two more quick things we can do here. Here's sort of a different type of slide where not only can we put presence into it, but let's say I wanted to actually, PowerPoint decided to go ahead a slide, and there we go. Let's say I wanted to just kind of hover over some content on the screen. We actually use artificial intelligence. We use image detection and edge detection to actually find objects on the screen and allow them to stand out. So we don't know it's PowerPoint. We don't know it's a LinkedIn profile. We're not looking at whatever it is. We're just doing edge detection on your screen. And again, it's a nice way to make that content really shine. And finally, sort of the other way we can bring this content to life, instead of me being full screen, I can make myself into this little circle that we call teleports. We call them teleports because I can actually inject myself into any piece of content on screen. And again, I can change that transparency. So I can literally be talking to you about something being immersive, something being interactive, and something feeling natural. And compared to any other presentation you've ever seen, like this is so different because I am part of that content. And we really feel that makes a difference. Now I'm going to show you, we've shown you the projector, this transparency being behind content. I've shown you the light board where you can draw on things. Just one last quick thing for your audience.
Yeah.
We are really trying to solve an issue of asynchronous collaboration where not everybody can be here at the same time. So what we've done is we've created a technology called Beams. I'm going to click on this butterfly up here at the top of the screen, and I'm going to go to the tab that says Beams. What you're seeing here is these other people that are online right now inside my organization these are my coworkers that I could be connecting to. I could bring them right into this meeting with us. But I'm going to go here and I'm going to click on this message from Richie, and let's see what happens.
Hello, and welcome to our incredible team. I'm Richie, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you on board.
What this has done is not just taking a video, like a YouTube video, and me as a presenter going, oh, let me go find it and let me share it. And it's going to be a window on the screen. And it's going to be all these things. We make people into interactive components of the meeting. Richie faded into the meeting, just like as if he was here with me. I can pause him. If Richie was sharing his screen, it would actually project onto my screen. So your audience would now be seeing it. So you can't like project from a YouTube video into a live webinar. But with ours, anyone that is recorded inside Airglass, these things we call beams, what they're doing on their screen becomes part of your screen. And so essentially you could have a library of experts with you in every single meeting. How many times have you been speaking to a customer, or a client, a student, whoever it happens to be, and you say, oh, let me follow up with you on that. I'm going to go get that expert. What if at your disposal, you had little 30-second clips, 2-minute clips, whatever it happens to be, of your company's security expert, cloud expert, AI expert, HR onboarding, law, whatever it happens to be. And throughout the course of the meeting, where they couldn't make every meeting with you, you can't scale people to make every meeting, we now enable every expert in your organization to be available for every single meeting that they need to be in. So those three things, this sort of telepresence inside your content that I'm showing you, the light board, and the ability to inject people into content is how we really feel we're changing and, hopefully infusing humanity into this meetings that we're talking about.
I love that. There's a tremendous amount of layers happening there between the injection of a much more human approach to presenting, displaying, and interacting with information. The use cases seem immense. Like the one you just brought up. Of course, I'm going back to my sales days. Is the fact that I would absolutely love to hold multiple assets out of a hat in relation to, they have questions about architecture, security, whatnot, instead of just sending PDFs over. If there was collateral related to, hey, our head of security, risk, compliance, where there's snippets you could bring in, that gives a much more human touch and feel to those conversations. Yeah, you can pass over all the collateral, after the meeting, but actually hearing, curation of that's so different than what the normal experience is.
Absolutely. And being able to have your executive team scale to attend each and every meeting across your organization when a merger and acquisition happens, to have those people to be able to connect and answer all the questions for every client to tell them what that merger and acquisition means. HR onboarding, I think, is one of the most wonderful use cases because it makes a new employee start to feel like they're engaging with these people and meeting these people. So there, as you mentioned, there's no boundaries of how useful this technology can be on an e-commerce shopping site, being able to have expertise for every one of your products, scale to every single meeting that your client reps are having. So it's a lot of fun. It's fun to work on.
Yeah, it must feel boundless because there's EX application, CX application. This is, I mean, incredibly novel tech. What are you seeing in terms of some of the use cases, both historical and classical, which are getting upgraded through spatial technology, and then novel uses that really are bleeding edge?
Great question. So you mentioned the term spatial computing. So, where are we going with,
Mm,
sort of virtual environments, augmented environments, spatial computing? So for everyone, if that's sort of a new idea for you, perhaps Meta, what they've been doing in the metaverse, or Apple with the Apple Vision Pro has brought this to your center of attention. So the audience watching, you've been hearing about this a little bit lately. What does it actually mean? What does spatial computing mean? And obviously, at the highest level of definition, it means being able to be immersed inside the environment that you're in, to be able to place objects in certain areas, have them stay in those areas. For us, what it means is finally on your computer being able to leverage the z-axis, depth on your screen. From the early 80s till now, whether it's Apple or Windows, the OSs really haven't changed all that much. You have a bunch of rectangles that you drag around the screen. You can minimize them, maximize them. They may be a little more 3D than they used to be, but honestly, operating systems haven't changed. We are now adding those layers of transparency where you can see people and content and control it and start to get depth onto your screen. What's important about that is it allows you to consume more information in easier ways. You're not having to alt tab in between applications. You're not having to open and close as many times. So when you ask about what the practical applications of this are, we are really striving to give people access in context to the information they need for that moment. So they don't have to alt tab between multiple windows. They don't have to have as many screens. Not everyone has the luxury of having, 4 large screens on their desktop and being able to look back and forth between them or things like that. Sometimes you're on the go and you just have your laptop. If we can augment information for a doctor, a lawyer, a sales rep, a student, whatever it happens to be, if the information they need, right now, you and I are having a conversation, my meeting notes can be transparently layered on top of the screen here. The audience won't see them, but I have access almost like a teleprompter to sort of more information than what you would see on screen. So our goal for use cases is to give people that superpower of having access to information to help them be more successful, to help them feel more confident. It's amazing. We talk about productivity a lot. We don't talk about confidence and trust and authenticity and these tools really making people feel better about themselves and becoming better employees, which in turn helps their organization, which in turn helps their customers. And if we can, if we can increase that 1%, 50%, 80%, wherever that range happens to be, each little step along the way that we can improve that, I feel is a monumental, leap in over the technology that we have today.
And you're not having to wear a headset.
No headset. Now look, I've got an Oculus, floating around behind there. People might be able to see it. So I'm certainly by no means anti-VR. Every tool has its place, same as if you're a painter, a craftsman, a race car driver, there's different levels of tools for different things. I love putting on my VR headset, lying back and being immersed in an entirely three-dimensional world for relaxation and doing 15 minutes of yoga and Zen and the world disappearing around me. That is not the way I want to work. First of all, after 10 or 15 minutes or maybe an hour, depending on how strong your traps are, these things start to be cumbersome. The battery life is bad. They're expensive. They're siloed. One device can't talk to another. If I have one company's device and you have another, I can't meet you. If you have an Apple Vision Pro and I have an Oculus, we're not going to meet in the metaverse together. So, there's just so many barriers to entry. And I love the technology. I think virtual reality is interesting. I think augmented reality is obviously more interesting and feels more natural than being completely disconnected in a virtual environment. But if we can create a massive percentage, 75%, 90% of that feeling with 0% of the burden, cost, or neck strain, I think we're definitely onto something. And that's definitely what we do. I haven't shown you today our ability to use your hands and your body as interactive controls. You saw me being transparent on screen, but we also have technology that allows you to interact and touch and rotate a phone or explode an object or look at a DNA strand or move data around on the screen just using your body. And so, Apple Vision Pro is doing a lot with eye tracking. That is kudos to them, heavily, heavily advanced. And that's where that $4,000 price tag comes, to have all those monitors directly monitoring your pupil movement. But already within the first 2 weeks of that product being out, people are talking about how tiresome it is for your eyes to replace your mouse. We're not used to having to look around every pixel of the screen. So we feel it's a much more natural way for our bodies to interact with our keyboards, our mouse, our head, our hands. Everyone that sees our technology likens it to, Tom Cruise in Minority Report or Tony Stark in Iron Man moving things around. And so this is the nascent phase of where technology definitely will be in the future. I have zero doubt that sometime between tomorrow and 20 years from now, our children's generation, they're going to be using computers differently than we do. And it's fun to be helping build all that.
I mean, there must be tremendous application on B2C, education, creativity. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Audience, I swear I didn't set him up for this, but Rob, you mentioned my favorite word, creativity. I think again, I mentioned earlier, talk productivity so much. Creativity has been near and dear to my heart ever since I was an industry analyst. And I will give full credit where credit's due. Comes from the work I did with Adobe. As a collaboration analyst who worked with IBM and Microsoft and Google and Jive and Slack and all these others, creativity wasn't a big part of it until I started working in the Adobe world. And I was so inspired by their audience, by their tools, by just the goal of the company and their vision. Creativity is the most powerful thing that we can have. It's where innovation comes from. It's where solutions come from. And while our tools want to tell us we're going to become more productive, we're going to save 5 minutes of searching time, we're going to save 20 minutes of email time, all of that hasn't come to fruition over the last 20 years. I don't know anybody that's working less hours than they used to. We're working equally, and perhaps we're getting more work done.
No.
If these tools can lead us to creativity, new ways to interact, new ways to visualize data, with AI, new ways to generate information. My biggest excitement over this generative AI boom that's happening, whether it's text generation, whether it's image generation, or this week with Sona, being video generation, whatever these things are, I believe what we're starting to unleash is getting the majority of people to be able to express what's been in their minds, and they haven't had the skills to be able to create. I do not think any of these tools are going to replace the professional writer and editor, replace the professional artist, replace the professional movie director. But what they are going to do is allow the layman who's not trained in these things to get closer to what they've always dreamed of doing. I remember a few years ago, I gave an example where when drones came out, I was at Constellation's conference at the Ritz-Carlton at Half Moon Bay, for those of you familiar with south of San Francisco there. And I went for a run along the cliff face, and I threw my little $400 drone in the air, and I said, follow me along this cliff. That was something that 10 years before that, you'd have to hire a film crew, a helicopter, post-production crew, all of these things to do. And I always used that as an example of like me, who knows nothing, for a couple $100 was able to get this cinematic video of me running along a cliff in California. To this day, I probably watch that video once a month because I can't believe I'm able to have this footage of myself. Extrapolate that to where we are today. If someone has a creative notion in their mind of something that they wanted to draw or visualize or say, or just be able to do, I think these generative AI tools can get you whether it's 50% of the way there or 75% of the way there. They're not going to get you 100% of the way there for any like major business case yet. As a marketing person, I have not completely replaced my content creation with AI. I have certainly used it. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't. Go off and help, brainstorm some words, help brainstorm improve writing, help create some images that express what I'm trying to do for social media. Most of my LinkedIn posts or social media posts have generative AI, as part of that to get people's attention. But that idea of creativity is what I am most excited about, to see what it can do for the world. What problems can we solve? Problems that we know we have today, from medical to hunger to political to any of that spectrum. But what about the problems it's going to help us solve that we can't even imagine today? That's where the fun comes in. Is what are our children going to create that we haven't even dreamed of, and how are these tools going to help them do that? And again, you see Tony Stark visualizing things in Iron Man and moving objects around, being able to look at things from a different side of or a different perspective. All children draw. Little kids draw. And then at some point we stop. And I've heard experts talk about the reason we stop is confidence. I don't think I'm a good artist. I don't think I can sing. I have a terrible voice, etc. These barriers stop us. What if we could eliminate those barriers, and that creative child's mind could continue, and you could draw all the way till your professional career? That's what I'm excited about.
That's amazing. Love it. Love it. Alan, given where spatial tech is today, and Apple's certainly kind of taken their stance, put their flag in the sand of what they imagine it to be. If we look ahead in terms of the workplace, we talked a bit around digital friction, attention management, alt tabbing, back and forth, whatnot. I think some of the latest statistics claim that an individual knowledge worker will context switch anywhere between 1,200 and 3,000 times per day, which is egregious and sickening when you think about it. And yet, when you probably look at your time and where you're spending it, yeah, it probably is a lot of that back and forth. Where do you see spatial computing really taking us in terms of quelling that, and perhaps even giving us some time back, sans the headset?
I'm sorry, Rob, what were you saying? I was reading my email. No, it's just
Exactly, right? That is the way we work.
That my point is, what I think spatial computing is going to hopefully enable is us to pay more attention. We're not going to have to look away. We're not going to have to look at a second screen. We're not going to have to alt tab. Information is going to be displayed for us in ways that we're going to be able to see these layers of transparent information. There's not a sci-fi show that's ever been created, from Star Wars to Star Trek to The Expanse to all of these, that doesn't show this future of holographic interfaces, of information being at your disposal, being able to manipulate it and move it. And I think we are moving towards that. We are learning a lot about what the challenges of that are, especially for accessibility. So it's hard enough to have screen readers, to have hearing impaired and visually impaired accessibility for our two-dimensional spaces, for the applications that we already know and use today. Think about just how powerful closed captioning has been for those that are hearing impaired, in video conferencing. Many people have said they now prefer to be at home with video conferencing than go to work, because they don't know what someone's saying. And in real life, we don't have captions floating above us in the real world. There's some cool technology now that with glasses that allow that to happen, but for most people, that doesn't happen. I am thinking of a world where we extrapolate that even further, to where everybody has the information that they need, whether it's for sight or for hearing or for just data for information. If I'm speaking to you, AI should know, what was the last time Rob and Alan saw each other in real life? Bring up that picture from my Google photo search. Oh, there we are hanging out at Jive World. Oh, this is the event we were at. Here's your latest posts on Twitter. Our tools are so far from where they could be. I haven't changed my tune on this since I was an industry analyst 10 years ago. Our collaboration tools give us 1% of what we need today. They I'm sure your entire audience can think of 25 different things already in the 4 hours that have happened in today's workday that they wish had been different, that the tools had done something different. That opportunity is so exciting to me. Spatial computing is going to be part of it. Artificial intelligence is going to be a part of it. Things that we don't know that are going to come out 2 years from now are going to be part of it. Holograms, more transparent screens, flexible screens, being able to pull a screen out of your pocket and read it while you're on the train or on the plane and have security around it where other people can't see it and access it. DNA-based information that is secure that no one else is going to be able to look at. The boundary, we talked about boundless, earlier. That's truly where we are as technology goes right now. So what is spatial computing? I apologize to get back to to your point. What is spatial computing gonna do? It's gonna give us that depth and that extra dimension of space that we can use to leverage to put information in the places that we need it to be in the context of the moment that we're in. And that right now we're showing all sorts of things like AI summarization, AI suggestions. We're not doing well yet on contextual information, the right information at the right time. We can reactively have information summarized. I can say, tell me about this entire book, or tell me about this website, or rewrite this one paragraph of text, or summarize this call transcript. What the tools aren't doing yet today, and whoever's out there listening that's going to go create a next great startup to do this, they are not proactively providing us the information we need yet. And that's one of the things we're working on here at Mobeus, is also leverage technology to know the context of the moment and provide you that information at your fingertips, or not at your fingertips, maybe at your eyesight is a better way of saying it. We need to say something more modern than at your fingertips now that I say it out loud.
100%. I couldn't agree more. That's a problem and challenge that we've been looking to address in particular at Workgrid, is focusing on how do we guide your attention to the right information, actions when you need it. You brought up a good example there of like Jarvis and Iron Man, or even Star Trek, where they're using the GUIs in the air. And when I was thinking about that as you were saying it, is that oftentimes the technology is always an aid. It's not getting in the way. And yet our usual workday experience is it's in the way. It's a problem. It's a barrier. It's something we have to kind of grind through, as opposed to being that ever-present enabler, assisting at the right moment, but standing off to the side, if you will. You're still able to, shoot the shot of Star Trek, and it looks seamless, but it's not the center of the story. The people are.
Well, what you guys do so well at Workgrid is like kind of remove that barrier to even having to know what application you're looking at, integration, bringing things together. We haven't achieved it fully yet. We still turn on our operating system and click on the app that we want to use, whether it's a chat client or an email client or a web browser. Things are siloed, but we are moving away from that to the point where it's just going to be one. Like you just need the OS. You really don't need to know what the app is. You just need the OS. And new versions of UIs, new versions of UX, new versions of integration and APIs are going to make the traditional way we know of using computers since the early days of Windows icon, mouse, and pointer, it's going to make those things hopefully go away.
Fingers crossed. To end it out, Alan, I always like to ask a couple fun questions of my guests.
All right, let's do it. I'm okay with fun.
One of my favorites is, what advice would you give your younger self, if you could go back to Alan in his early 20s, let's say?
Oh boy. Okay. I wasn't younger self. I didn't know if it was my childhood or so my 20s would be a work advice. What work advice would I give myself? I attribute this perhaps to my personality, perhaps to being Canadian. I don't think I was aggressive enough in my early career. And I don't mean for aggressive to be a negative word. Not arrogant, not ruffle any feathers. But I think, there was times maybe I was a little passive, and I saw some of the things some other people did to stand out, maybe more than I did. So I would give, the person starting out, the 20-year-old starting out, maybe, be proud, be confident in what you do. Maybe I should say more confident, not more aggressive. But I have a few things that I can think of in my past that I'm like, oh, I wish I had done this instead of that. And they usually boil down to, I didn't push things enough or maybe take a chance enough. Just might be the person that I am. But I think, I'm happy where I've ended up by all means, but I think, could have steered my career in a few different directions, perhaps, if I had taken a few more chances.
That's great advice. That's great advice. What is the last best book you've read? Nonfiction, fiction, whatever.
I was going to say, sorry, audience. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, so most of my books are. I read Dog Man last night. From the business side of things, it's actually quite simple. And ironically, you had no idea I was going to say this. We've used this word 2 or 3 times. I kind of noted, I laughed when we said it. You've used the word boundless. It's actually the book Boundless by Vala Afshar and Henry King. I think is the best book that I have read in recent times. Again, it's called Boundless. And it's really about sort of, how would I summarize the book? AI, summarize Boundless for me. Okay, hold on. It's about blending technology and culture together, a lot about community and partnership and ecosystems and how organizations can't go at it alone. It really, they both work for Salesforce. They're part of the Salesforce ecosystem. I worked with them at Salesforce. And if some about that, Salesforce really values their community and the ecosystem that's been built around it. Same goes for others. My early days at IBM Lotus, it was all about the community. So I really think that's a wonderful book. It's a great read for people that sort of want to understand, how you blend culture and technology and partnerships and ecosystems to make everyone more successful. So that would be the most recent business book I believe I've read.
I'm gonna have to pick that up. It's funny. I've had 2 colleagues mention it in the last month or so. Yeah, and it's like, okay, that's a sign. There's your sign to go pick it up.
It's just they're both just great people, and their personalities come through. I do admit I know the authors, and I've read many business books by people I don't know, so I don't know if that's a truism for all authors. Like, do authors' personalities come through in their writing? When I'm reading Boundless, I feel like Vala's talking to me, and maybe that's why I connect very closely with it. It's a great read.
Excellent, Alan. You know what? This has been fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing Mobeus' story. Where can folks go to learn a bit more?
Absolutely. So if you visit Mobeus, Mobeus, similar to the Mobeus strip, but mobeus.com, or if you want to go directly to Airglass, AIRGLASS, airglass.com. Either one, you can learn more about it. I'm online on all the traditional socials. Usually it's under Alan Lepo, ALANLEPO. Always happy to connect on LinkedIn and expand the network. I just gave a pitch about, expanding your networks and community. So I guess I need to do it myself as well. I'd love to meet those of you that I haven't interacted with. And Rob, I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to your audience, and congratulations on all the great work you're doing, not only on the podcast, but at work as well with Workgrid. And, it'll be interesting to see. Let's combine our technologies and let's change the world.
Let's change the world. Thanks so much, Alan.
Cheers, everyone.